Welcome back to the Stokastic.com MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for UFC Vegas 58, which goes down on Saturday evening inside the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Myself and Pete, we're going to break this slate down for you over the next hour or so as we get through 12 fights. Of course, we were at 11 fights. Fight got out a little earlier on this week. David Onama, who had lost his opponent, now he takes on a UFC newcomer, Garrett Armfield, a guy that I am very familiar with. So we'll break this one down for you. Of course, as always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Good afternoon, Pete. How you doing, bro?
What is going on? Another card that I'm excited about, honestly. And I can't wait to see Rafael Fiziev against Rafael dos Anjos and some other interesting fighters as well. Like, I'm happy to see David Onama back in the cage, truthfully. Like, I think that this kid's got the goods.
Yeah, it's the Fiziev fight, man. We're going to talk about this one. I'm really looking forward to see how this thing is going to play out, especially being over 25 minutes. This is actually the third time these two have been paired up together. Of course, we are sponsored by PrizePicks. Later on the show, we'll talk about some props that we like over there at PrizePicks. But Pete, I want to talk a little bit strategy before we even kind of go into breaking down the fights. And I know there's all we can have, people coming into the show that maybe this is their first time checking out. Maybe they're just kind of diving into MMA DFS for the first time. And when we're talking about DraftKings, which here on the strategy show, we primarily talk about DraftKings because the FanDuel salaries are not out. So it can be kind of tough to break down the FanDuel slate. But in terms of DraftKings, my strategy is fairly simple, Pete. It's me thinking about how I think these fights are going to go. And then I'm looking of who can score knockdowns, who can score takedowns, who can score control time, because, the one of the things is, and there's always going to be a fight or two on a card that you say, man, it's going to primarily play on the feet. If it plays out on the feet, we have no knockdowns, no takedown. That score may not be ideal.
Yeah. So obviously you have to start your process with the scoring system. And for DraftKings, it definitely tailors wrestlers, grapplers, or quick finishers. So you have to sit there and think about which fighter are you most comfortable. This is how I start, right? Like, I'm like, okay, who could possibly break the slate, or who I think is going to score 100+ points? Because we want all of our fighters to get 100+ points, but you should start at a very comfortable spot. Especially for instance, the main event, right? You know that they have 5 rounds to work with, 25 minutes to rack up a ton of points, more opportunities to get points and opportunities to finish the fight. If there's a wrestling element, you definitely love that because it boosts the totals over on DraftKings. And also the process for me is combining the tools that we have on Stokastic.com with some actual fight breakdowns as well, thinking which fights can end inside the distance. We want best inside the distance odds and best inside the distance fighters. And sometimes it's volatile, right? We see it where it's like, man, the loser of this fight's gonna score single digits. But we do have a good feeling that this under 1.5 is extremely live, and the winner is going to be a part of the optimal lineup.
And look, we have the best tools and data in the business over at Stokastic.com. And the thing that I'm exporting out every event, I did earlier on today, was that top fighter tool, looking at that tool. And there's certain things that I'm going to look at. Obviously, ownership is the very first thing that I'm looking at, because I'm saying, where can I get leverage on the field? What are the fights that aren't getting a ton of ownership? They might be fights that you could go, you don't have a lot of faith in. Let's say it like that. This week, that fight is Jared Vanderaa versus Chase Sherman. The ownership is low on both sides of that equation as we sit here on Thursday, but that is going to be a fight that I target. Also, when I'm looking at that top fighter tool, I'm looking at top 6 percentage, greater than 100 points percentage, because when we talk about DraftKings side of the equation here, to me, it's the race to 650 every week. It doesn't matter what, how many fights are on. My general thought process is I got to get to 650 points to be able to take down these big GPPs. So that top fire tool, if you're not a Stokastic Plus member, tell you it's you got to take advantage of it. We'll talk about a deal we have here in a little bit. Of course, if you're not a Stokastic Plus member and you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, today's free premium data and tools are MLB player projections. So be sure to check out that over at Stokastic.com. As I mentioned, we'll talk about especially do we have going on right over at Stokastic.com here very shortly. But Pete, let's get right into the main event. We got Rafael dos Anjos taking on Rafael Fiziev, the 2-1 betting favorite in this one. He is 9,000 over on DraftKings. The return on Rafael dos Anjos is 7,200. Should note, smaller cage, 25-footer as opposed to a 30-footer we saw last week. When you think about RDA, one of the things I kind of think of is I think of whether or not he's going to be able to take this fight to the ground. Now, we have seen people try to go this method against Rafael Fiziev, has not worked well. When I was writing down some notes watching fight film on Rafael Fiziev, Pete, one of the words I wrote, flexibility. Because, man, he could do that matrix move pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Rafael Fiziev. I truthfully do. An exceptional striker, and he definitely shows it every single time he's out there. And he also has developed some strong takedown defense, and that's going to be it's going to be needed, especially in this matchup against Rafael dos Anjos, because dos Anjos can strike with him, but he's such a proven veteran that he's going to test you in all areas. And, Rafael dos Anjos definitely has an advantage over most fighters when he does take them down to the mat. It's just a matter of getting it to there. I think that Fiziev, for the most part, has pretty strong takedown defense, as proven inside the octagon thus far, but he has not been tested in championship rounds. So you would like to think that the later this fight goes, the more opportunities that Rafael dos Anjos has to get him down, to control him, to basically win minutes out there and avoid the dangerous striking skill set of Rafael Fiziev. I have to tell you, I like the price point on both of them. So I'm favoring Fiziev in the matchup. I think that he's a difficult matchup for Rafael dos Anjos, and I think it's a matter of where they're at in their careers. I do think that Fiziev's going to be tested, and he's probably going to lose a round or two, and this could be a nail biter of a performance. But at 9,000, I'm okay with getting to him because of his KO upside. It's not like a smash play by any means, because if he doesn't find an early finish, does he necessarily pay off that price point? Not entirely sure about that, but I am backing him in the matchup. On the flip side, Rafael dos Anjos, 7,200. I always say it every week, and Jason says it as well. Prioritize main event and co-main event underdogs when building lineups. Don't get too cute in some spots. I think that getting to Rafael dos Anjos at 7,200, he's arguably Fiziev's toughest test to date. It's just a matter of, does he implement the correct game plan? So his style of wrestling and looking for takedowns and submissions favors DraftKings scoring system. So I'm going to get to plenty of RDA, but it's a Fiziev pick for me.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I like Fiziev to go out there and win this matchup. From the RDA side of the equation is, what if he is able to get the fight to the ground? How does this fight go with Fiziev on his back? Just because it's something we have not seen. Who is the fighter that's going to defend leg kicks better? I think when you think of both these guys, the leg kicks they have, if anyone didn't see the Brad Riddell fight that Rafael Fiziev have, and of course we saw what happened with Brad Riddell last week, Fiziev lands a spinning kick where, Riddell's out on his feet. And kudos, I will say it was Herb Dean was the referee for that one. Immediately knows, just comes in and stop the fight, because you could just see it. He was out on his feet here. But like you just said there, I believe we have to, if you're a multi-entry player, you have to look at going both sides of this equation. Look, if you're a single entry, single bullet player, I do think you have to target this main event because of the 25 minutes, because I think that the probability, Pete, is this thing is going into the fourth round, probably the fifth round.
Yeah. And I like getting to it also because it's one of the fights that I'm most looking forward to. Main events tend to have more ownership, so I'm okay with getting away from it. But just given how I foresee this fight going, I think that it's going to be one or the other. Fiziev's going to be able to stuff the takedowns. He's going to punish dos Anjos on the feet, or dos Anjos is going to be able to win some minutes, which will result in an elevated score sitting there at 7,200. So I'm excited, man. I can't wait to see it. And I'm hoping that Fiziev pulls this off against the proven veteran in RDA.
And the middleweight matchup in the co-main event, to me, Pete's a very intriguing matchup here. You got Kyle taking on Petrosyan, 8,900 for Kyle, 7,300 for Petrosyan. And of course, we talked about this fight earlier this week over at Odd Shopper. And one of the things that you made a point on this fight is potentially this fight hitting the mat and being an advantage here for the favorite.
Yeah, so I really like Kyle Bahayo. I truthfully do. Both of these guys are pretty big for the division, and Kyle has some excellent footwork. and some karate-esque striking, similar to Machida. You also said that it kind of looks like McGregor in some spots in his early career, and you're right, he does. He has very good hands, good combinations, but it's the grappling that I think is going to give him the edge in this matchup against Armin Petrosyan. Petrosyan can beat you up on the feet and brutalize you, as evidenced against Gregory Rodriguez as he started to work his way back into that fight. The issue is the grappling and how Bahail can control you on the mat. Certain fighters that Petrosyan has faced in the past, he's been able to get up against, but I do think that a guy in Bahail who's so position oriented can win minutes, win control time, and look for a possible submission finish. I'm really, really big on Kyle Bahail, and I was in his Dana White Contender Series debut against Aaron Jeffrey. It was not a lethargic performance, but it was. I expected him to finish Aaron Jeffrey there, and he took his time in some spots, landed 3 takedowns, 68 significant strikes. I could see a similar performance against Armin Petrosyan, but I do like the price point of Bahail. I think Petrosyan's a guy that we have to target when he's in a striking matchup. I just feel like the more well-rounded fighter in Bahail is going to be a nightmare for him.
Yeah, no question. The favorite is a more well-rounded fighter in this matchup. Move on next up to a bantamweight matchup. You got Said Nurmagomedov, who is 9,200, taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade at 7,000. Of course, Said Nurmagomedov does have a slight reach advantage in this one. And, I think that when you go back and there's tons of fights in the UFC that you can watch with Said here. Primarily when I think of him, I think of a guy that's primarily going to want to keep it on the feet, but he's no slouch. This fight hits the mat.
No, Said Nurmagomedov is a beast. I really like him, and I think that he's super dangerous, as evidenced in his most recent performance. I mean, he picked up a very, very quick guillotine choke win in 47 seconds against Cody Stamann. And previous to that, he knocked out Mark Strigo in 51 seconds. So his past 2 fights, he's been a round 1 monster. Do I think that he gets Douglas Silva de Andrade out of there in round 1? No, I don't, but I don't think it's impossible either. I think that he's going to be a little bit too quick for de Andrade. His versatility on the feet, mixing in beautiful spin kicks to the body, and just having so many weapons at his disposal is going to, be a nightmare for Douglas Silva de Andrade, a guy who I've backed in the past. And Douglas Silva de Andrade coming off of a nice come from behind win against Sergey Morozov. Morozov lit him up on the feet and rocked him. And it looked like de Andrade was going to be picking up a loss. De Andrade rallied, hurt Morozov because he has dangerous power for the division, and ended up picking up a nice rear naked choke finish. I truthfully think that Said Nurmagomedov is one of the spend up plays of the week that I'm okay getting to. The power of de Andrade makes him live in a sense. I just think that the better fighter in 2022 is Said Nurmagomedov, and I think it's a perfect test for him. So 9,200 is fine. De Andrade is super tough and always a cardio liability. So I like Nurmagomedov inside the distance.
Yeah, I think the longer this fight goes, the more I do favor Said Nurmagomedov in this one. Look, Douglas Silva de Andrade is going to have low ownership, but maybe you want to throw a pump play in there on him. I don't mind that, but yeah, I think the right call is Said Nurmagomedov. Really kind of probably the question comes into a roster construction aspect of, how do you want to develop your roster when we're talking about some of these high end fighters that are going to be a part of this card. Next up, let's move over to the heavyweight matchup that I know Pete is so excited to break this one down for you. Jared Vanderaa taking on Chase Sherman. Jared Vanderaa, 8,600, 7,600 for Chase Sherman. I spoke to Vanderaa about 2 weeks ago. He mentioned that basically he's had about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks notice in terms of this matchup. And look, Vanderaa wants to strike. Now, didn't do that in his last fight, which, I think we all, look at that and go, why the hell were you engaging in a grappling matchup against Alexei Oleinik? And when I spoke to him, I started to kind of try to allude him to the fact of, is grappling going to be a part of the game plan? Because when Chase Sherman does struggle, it is because people are able to out grapple him here. And Pete, I'll be honest with you, I walked away from the interview thinking he's going to strike with Chase Sherman, and if he does that, Pete, Chase Sherman has got to be an underdog pool.
This fight is a disaster. And it, you know how to irritate me is just low level heavyweights or low level women's MMA, where you know that there is so many variables and it's a high variance fight, right? Like so many things can happen here. Jared Vanderaa will outweigh Chase Sherman. So if he lands on top, I do think that Chase Sherman is, kind of lost on the mat. And we have seen Vanderaa on Dana White's Contender Series look good in that situation. If he was to ever go out there and say, or have a strategy of implementing takedowns, I would significantly favor him here against the one-dimensional Chase Sherman. My issue with this fight is the fight IQ of both guys. So I truthfully don't know how to really say this other than I favor Jared Vanderaa just because I feel like he's a more well-rounded fighter. That does not mean that he's going to use his well-rounded skill set. Mm-hmm. He could go out there and have a boxing matchup with Chase Sherman, similar to like of how Sean Strickland did against Alex Pereira. And it's just like, why did you do that? You were the more well-rounded athlete out there. And now you're allowing him to pick up a win over you in his comfort zone, which is not what we want. My issue when I look at the stats is just the output of Chase Sherman in comparison to Jared Vanderaa. Chase Sherman 6.08 strikes landed per minute. Jared Vanderaa 4.5 strikes absorbed per minute for Vanderaa 4.7 and Chase Sherman 6.3. These guys are going to punch each other in the face a lot. So it's just a matter of who implements the correct game plan, who's in better shape. Like I said, it's a lean towards Vanderaa, but I'm going to be getting to Chase Sherman just because it's low level heavyweights and literally anything could happen. Chase Sherman, like Jared Vandeera's fight IQ in his most recent fight against Alexei Oleinik is just evidence enough that you can't trust him, especially at his price point. But it's just a fight that I will be getting to.
I mean, look, you don't trust either side of this equation. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. But as we're developing lineups, it's a fight that might be hard to avoid because the likelihood is the winner of this matchup's probably going to be 100 points. You tell me Chase Sherman goes out there and wins, he wins by knockout, I think he's over 100 points. He's going to have a knockdown, and the one thing is, and like you mentioned about the stats, now the strikes absorbed per minute rate is god awful. But while that's awful, he also throws a lot per minute, so like to me, like, and looking at, the top fire tool and looking at the ownership on this one, I just feel like ownership should be higher than what it is. I would, to me, I want to get over the field at what we're seeing on ownership right now, just because of, I mean, look, it is low level UFC heavyweight action. We're not going to kid. We're not kidding ourselves here. We understand what it is, but to me, it's just a fight that I'm going to find myself wanting to get to. And of course, if you want to get access to that top fire tool, you got to sign up for a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass. You can get that right now over there at Stokastic.com. And we've got a great deal for you to take advantage of, where you can get 50% off your first week of any package over there at Stokastic.com. Be sure to use that promo code MMA Strategy Show, all word, all caps, MMA Strategy Show, for 50% off your first week of any weekly package. If you're only looking to play MMA DFS, that's great, because we have a package there for you as well. You head over to our MMA weekly checkout page and use that code to get 50% off your first week of our MMA package. Again, this is for new users only. And of course, Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on. You can easily add it on to your account. So be sure to take advantage of that. If you've never been a Stokastic Plus member, take advantage of it. We got a UFC show every week, so you got to take advantage of that great deal we got for new users only. Get 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Be sure to use that promo code MMA Strategy Show, so everyone here at Stokastic.com knows you heard about here on the MMA Strategy Show. Let's move on next up to a female matchup. And Pete, just kind of like the last matchup, don't feel good about either side in this equation either. Cynthia Calvillo and Nina Nunes, 8,500 for Cynthia Calvillo, 7,700 for Nina Nunes. And it seems like more times than not, Pete, a majority of UFC cards, if you want to target the underdog in the female matchups, you're going to find yourself in a better position more times than not. For example, last week with Storolenko submitting Rose Clark in the first round.
Yeah, so bring it back a couple of years, it would be a Calvillo play all day at 8,500. The issue here is it's 2022, and we have seen Calvillo hit with some adversity within her career. She started off really hot and really, looking like maybe even a contender at times, right? Like she was able to incorporate good takedowns, and her boxing was always like, her developing skill set. And it's like, okay, she can win rounds and win minutes and threaten people on the mat. It's just, she's been hit with some losses coming off of a second round TKO against Andrea Lee, first round KO against Jessica Andrade, and a decision defeat against Caitlin Chukagian. I don't think that this is an easy matchup, even though Nina Ansaroff is a fighter where there's so many unknowns, right? Like we don't know like what her training schedule is since she's become a mom. We do know that she has a significant other who's one of the best fighters of all time. So Nina Nunes has definitely picked up some skills from Amanda Nunes. And the one thing that I really like to look at, even if it's back in 2019, is her performance against Tatiana Suarez, who I view with such high regard. And I can't wait to see her eventually return. Tatiana Suarez, 4 of 13 in the takedown department, an absolute takedown monster. So the fact that Nina Nunes was able to defend, 9 takedown attempts from Tatiana Suarez, who I think is a better wrestler than Cynthia Calvillo, gives me some promise and some hope in this matchup against Cynthia Calvillo. So truthfully, I have no issue getting to Nina Nunes at all at 7,700. I think that she's going to be able to be the better striker of the two. As long as she's able to win minutes on the feet by keeping it upright, I think she's capable of pulling off a 75, 80 point performance. So if, like I said, if it was a couple years ago, I'd be thinking Cynthia Calvillo be taking Nina Nunes to take down City. Very well could happen, but I'm picking Nina Nunes here at 7,700.
Of course, this is a matchup that's at 125 pounds. Personally, I don't think Cynthia Calvillo is a 125er. When you look at her, I mean, look, if you tell me Cynthia Calvillo can land takedowns, I think this is her fight to lose.
Mm-hmm.
If this fight plays out on the feet, I think Nina Nunes is someone you got to look at here. I mean, this is just ultimately it's volatility on both sides of this. Now, I don't think there's going to be a ton of ownership on either side of it, just because of that volatility of, because probably it's, good chance this thing goes 15 minutes. And so from the Nina Nunes side of the equation, if it goes 15 minutes, you're just hoping for a ton of volume. But if you're a Cynthia Calvillo, it's about getting the fight to the ground. And, look, there's a lot of questions with Cynthia Calvillo heading in this one. Where is she kind of at in this career? You bring up a great point on Nina Nunes about what kind of has been training life been like for her. I know she was a part, and maybe I'm one of the few people that's actually watched a couple episodes of The Ultimate Fighter. Have you watched one episode of The Ultimate Fighter this season?
No, I haven't. I don't even know what day it's on. I don't even know how to watch it. And it's a damn shame because you guys know, I'm an MMA fanatic. I've been slacking.
It's on ESPN Plus.
Okay. Tuesday nights, right?
It debuts like Tuesday at like midnight, so you can pretty much watch it Monday night if you're up. I know sometimes you might be a night owl, but I mean, look, it's there's some fighters in there that I think that putting him on the Ultimate Fighter was too soon.
Oh boy.
Especially if you win that show and all of a sudden you're in the UFC.
Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, that was my show. I mean, Dana White's Contender Series has seemingly passed the Ultimate Fighter from an interest standpoint.
No question.
Of MMA fighters. The issue is like, I don't know, as a fighter trying to knock on the door for the UFC, it's the battle of, do I just keep fighting regionally in hopes of picking up a contract without having to go to the Contender Series? Or do I go to the Contender Series and try to fight in front of Dana White and win the contract? So, I mean, it's like it's a nice little debate because I don't necessarily know what the correct answer is.
I think it depends on the matchup you get.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad that you think the same way as I do. I don't think it's you just got the call from Dana White Contender Series and it's like, no matter what, because sometimes we see fighters like Trevin Jones, right? Like I always use him. He got into the UFC by right place, right time, going out to Vegas and just being around and staying ready. There are plenty of fighters who make it into the UFC that are not on the caliber of the people that are on Dana White's Contender Series.
Yeah. I mean, and this on the regional scene, particularly if you're the A side of the fight, you have a very good chance of getting the stylistic matchup that you want. You go on the Contender Series, it may not be the stylistic matchup you want. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to put yourself in stylistically the fight that is going to work out best for you. You know, you maybe don't necessarily always want it to be, if you're a striker, to go up against a grappler or vice versa, which leads us into our next matchup, which is Michael Johnson and Jamie Mullarkey. Michael Johnson 7,100, Jamie Mullarkey 9,100. I mean, look, Pete, this one is easy for me to break down. If you're Michael Johnson, just keep on the feet. If you're Jamie Mullarkey, do not engage in a kickboxing matchup against Michael Johnson. Utilize your grappling, get this one to the ground.
I have interest on both sides, and it's just because Michael Johnson's hand speed doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and his excellent striking is always live to pull off an upset, especially against a guy in Jamie Mullarkey, who has been, quite hittable inside the UFC. The one thing I do not like to see for Jamie Mullarkey is 5.05 strikes absorbed per minute. So with that just right there, and me knowing what type of fighter Michael Johnson is, that 7,100 price tag for Michael Johnson, I'm going to be sprinkling to that and getting to that in several lineups. But the more well-rounded skill set in 2022 for me is Jamie Mullarkey. I think that he can compete on the feet, as evidenced in his last fight against Jalen Turner. And then prior to that, his back-to-back knockout wins over Kama Worthy and Devontae Smith. This kid Mullarkey's got some great hand combinations. He really does. So he can test that chin of Michael Johnson, but it's the threat of the takedown and the takedown potential in this matchup against Michael Johnson that really made me circle Mullarkey here at 9,100, because we have seen him take down his opposition in the past. Brad Riddell, he attempted 15 takedowns, landed only 3 of them, but went the distance with Riddell, landed 5 of 11 against Faraziem. I just really like how he has options, and options are great in an MMA fight, especially on DraftKings at 9,100. So I'm picking Mullarkey to win, but like I said, for underdogs, Michael Johnson, one of the guys I will be sprinkling in some of my lineups in case Mullarkey gets clipped or is not completely healed from that TKO defeat to Jalen Turner.
And if you create groups over Fantasy Cruncher and you're looking at a takedown group, Jamie Mullarkey has to be in that group. I mean, because to me, it is the path to him going out there and winning this fight. If the fight plays out on the feet, I mean, Michael Johnson at 7,100 on DraftKings does stick out to me as a cheap value play to throw in there, just because of, if he does go out there and win, I think it's going to be by stoppage. And you mentioned about it. That hand speed has not gone anywhere. He's continued to still have the hand speed that he does have. Now, of course, this is the strategy show getting you ready for UFC Vegas 58. And to let you know about our sponsor, PrizePicks, you can check them out over at prizepicks.com, or you can download their app in the App Store, and they got their daily prop-based contests. I absolutely love playing over there at PrizePicks, where I want to play some little MMA, maybe this time of year playing a little MLB as well. But of course, we're here to talk about the MMA slate they have over at PrizePicks. And of course, be sure to use that promo code AWESOMO, as they got a instant first match deposit of up to $100. So you want to put $100 in your account, they'll give you $100. You only want to put $50 in your account, they'll give you $50. So you got to take advantage of that deal they have going on over there. And Pete, when I'm looking at these props, the first prop I want to throw out to you is a fight that we haven't broken down yet. We'll get to it here momentarily. And that is a fight time on Tresean Gore, 12.5. And look, I know that recency bias is a legit thing when we think about fights. After seeing what I've seen from Cody Brundage in his last fight, previous fights, I don't think this fight's hit in the third round. I think that either Tresean Gore is going to knock out Cody Brundage, or Cody Brundage will utilize wrestling, get a TKO finished on the mat. I do like the under 12.5 here on the fight time.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I think that Tresean Gore, I'm hoping that he's going to have a better account of himself this time. He looked a little gun shy in his most recent one in his UFC debut. And I think it's a winnable matchup. I mean, you saw where Cody Brundage was in a terrible, terrible spot, and we'll get to it more. But I do like that under, because I just view it as seeing one way or another. Brundage is going to have his way on the mat, or Gore is going to punish him on the way in. So that under on the fight time makes a ton of sense.
I know we both looked at the takedown prop of Jamie Mullarkey, and we're both kind of on the same page here. It's 1.5. We both like the over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially early, it should be zap the gas tank of Michael Johnson and try to avoid getting hit with so many quick combinations. So the 1.5 makes a lot of sense. Johnson's talented enough to defend some or get taken down once, get back to his feet. Training at Sanford MMA, it makes sense that he's going to get back to his feet. I just hope that Mullarkey takes him down again. So over 1.5 is the play for me.
Yeah, that was literally my thought when I initially saw that prop was like, I just need Michael Johnson to get up once.
Yep.
Just get up once, bro. Defend, get taken down, get back up, let Jamie Mullarkey take you back down. You're going to hit that over. Now, there is a significant strike prop that you mentioned to me right before the show that you like. It's actually going to be the next matchup that we're going to be talking about here of Ricky Turcios, 80.5.
I like Ricky Turcios a lot this week. And, I'm not a big Zahabi backer. I've picked him to win in this most recent bout, but I do think that Ricky Turcios is just going to be too much for him on the feet. And just as long as he keeps it upright, I think that 80.5 significant strike seems high, but with the volume that he possesses and how tough Zahabi can be at times, I think he's going to smash the 80.5 significant strikes.
Yeah, the one thing in terms of, and we'll start to move ahead now into this matchup with Zahabi and Ricky. Zahabi, by the way, 7,400, Ricky 8,800. I've never been big on Ayman Zahabi, and it's really just because of kind of a lot of things you kind of heard coming out of TriStar about what his brother really wanted him to go forward in terms of his mixed martial arts journey here, but it is a heavy price tag on Ricky, especially looking at some of those 9,000 options I do like this week.
I really, really, really like Ricky Turcios this week. Just because I feel like he might not be a popular play because, this fight could sneak it into decision range. But with how that he scored 119 in his debut against Brady Highstand, where he threw 171 significant strikes, landed 100, also landed 2 of 4 takedowns, defended 5, got a knockdown, got a reversal. This kid is points galore, and his volume is going to be the difference maker here. Slight reach advantage for Turcios, 3-inch reach advantage over Zahabi, but a massive volume advantage. And I do think that as long as this fight's upright, Ricky's going to be treating Zahabi like a punching bag, just trying to avoid the big shot. So 7 significant strikes landed per minute in comparison to Ayman Zahabi at 2.82. That is a lot. And I really like just the possibility of picking up knockdowns and a finish as well. So 8,800 is going to be a guy, Ricky Turcios, I'm pretty confident is going to pick up the win this week.
By the way, note message over there in the chat. Thomas, appreciate you throwing some love for my interviews out there. Sanford MMA has rebranded as they have a new corporate sponsor. Sanford was a corporate sponsor previously. Prior to that, initially back in the day, it was Jocko, which was a apparel company. So they went from, I think it was Jocko Hybrid Training Center to Black Zillions, to Hard Knocks 365, to Sanford MMA, and now to Kill Cliff FC.
Annoying.
Did I give a good breakdown of the
That's
name
pretty good. I mean,
you
probably missed about 3 or 4 name changes in between that because these guys are like, make up your damn mind. I understand money's money, but goodness gracious, I don't know. Until they change their Instagram, I don't know if they have. I'm calling them Sanford MMA.
All right. By the way, the funny thing is, Jocko Hybrid Apparel was like my second sponsor.
Really?
When I started MMA, I had a apparel company
club too.
Yes. Oh God, yeah, Combat Club. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, when I started, I had an apparel company that jumped on board right from the start. I mean, gave me a nice check. Nice check. it really helped pay for a lot of things at the beginning of this journey. And then it was I had Jocko, and then it's been a countless list. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean
that's back in the day, bro. That's back in that's circa 2012.
I have some Jocko shorts just because of like following the team and all that. But Yeah, I mean, they're the same. I'm just gonna call him Henry Hoof's gym from now on. Hoofed MMA.
Yeah. No question about that one. By the way, speaking of interviews, I did interview Jared Vanderaa. If y'all guys want to catch that out over my YouTube channel. Let's move on next to a female matchup. We got Antonina Shevchenko taking on Courtney Casey. Shevchenko 8,700, Casey 7,500. I feel like a broken record here, Pete, when I say this. She's not her sister. She's not her sister. She's not her sister. But I just don't know if Courtney Casey's got the grappling to take this one.
That's the issue, right? Like, I'm not a Antonina Shevchenko guy. I'm really not. And I think anybody that knows the sport now knows that she's nowhere near her sister. And the last name itself can carry some ownership. You have to be careful whenever Shevchenko's fighting, right? Because in certain matchups, if her opponent has takedown upside, you want to avoid Antonina Shevchenko, because Shevchenko off of her back looks like a fish out of water at times. Although she can land takedowns of her own right, I just don't like her in a situation like that. She's a phenomenal kickboxer in Muay Thai, like Muay Thai fights. Has not really materialized inside the octagon. Like I don't watch her fight and say she's incredible on the feet. I think she's solid on the feet. This matchup against Courtney Casey should be a winnable one. I do not hold Courtney Casey in a high regard at all. A little dangerous off of her back with submission attempts, but a fighter that's not going to test Antonina Shevchenko's takedown defense, you would think. Courtney Casey really hasn't gone the takedown well, and she's been in the UFC for quite some time. I mean, there was only one fight where she attempted 6 takedowns, and that was against Angela Hill, and Angela Hill was only taken down one time there. So I don't necessarily think that this is a takedown city fight. This is a fight I might be a little light on, just because I am favoring Antonina Shevchenko ever so slightly, but I really hate this fight from a DFS standpoint. Like I don't really want to get to it. If Courtney Casey makes it into some of my lineups, I'm okay with it just because of the volatility surrounding women's MMA, but it's a lean towards Shevchenko for me.
Pete, I am disappointed in you.
Why? What's up?
You forgot to mention something.
What?
Armbar from guard, baby.
Oh yeah. I said she's a little dangerous off of her back, and that's definitely viable.
I thought
here.
you were. I was like, oh, he's gonna mention it. I'm like, is he having a brain fart?
Armbar from guard is always live, especially when somebody is not the best in the grappling department. And Courtney Casey has picked up armbar wins in the past. Looking at the ownership, I'd say it's about right for both fighters. Like I probably don't want to get over that too much. I'll probably be neutral to the field. And like I said, not my favorite fight.
Armbar from guard. I think we should create that t-shirt.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think we should as well.
Oh man, yeah, armbar from guard definitely live in that one. Next up, we got a match that we previously talked a little bit about: Tresean Gore and Cody Brundage. 8,300 for Tresean Gore, 7,900 for Cody Brundage. I mean, look, if I'm Cody Brundage, the thought process has to be get the fight to the ground. So, we all know what happened in his last fight against Dolce. I mean, let's be honest about it. There might have been some refs that came in and stopped that fight. I mean, it was not going well for Cody Brundage. Cody mentioned to me after the fact that part of his mindset going into that matchup was that the fact that he wanted to wear down Dolce and then take advantage of him. I mean, look, and he took advantage of poor fight IQ. We both know that. This is one that I think, and once again, as I look at where we sit here on ownership, it's nice on both sides as the equation. Look, do you feel great on either side of the equation? Probably not. But like I look at it and say, I could see Tresean Gore scoring a knockout here, but also I could see Cody Brundage utilizing wrestling and doing a ground and pound victory.
Yeah, I tell you what, this fight is going to get some of my ownership just because I like the price point of both fighters. I think that Tresean Gore sitting there at 8,300, he has some upside. Cody Brundage being an underdog under 8,000 at 7,900 makes a ton of sense. The saying of weathering the storm was on full display against Dolce Lungambula, but like he took that a little too literal, and he literally ate every shot from Dolce Lungambula, and some referees would have stopped it. He ate so many shots on the feet that Dolce was exhausted, shot a takedown, which was poor fight IQ, and ended up getting caught in a guillotine, and Cody Brundage finishing him. So on the flip side, we have Tresean Gore, who looked solid on The Ultimate Fighter, but seems to have that Tyron Woodley mental block of pulling the trigger. And I don't know what it is, but some fighters go out there and they're a little too gun shy, almost like they're afraid of making mistakes, or they're afraid of committing too much and entering into that zone where they can get clipped themselves or taken down. And you saw that against Brian Battle. It's like, Tresean, do something. Let your hands go. Like, have some urgency. And when a fighter doesn't have urgency, it's a big red flag for me. It really is. And that's why Tyron Woodley, betting against him was like some of the easiest money ever in the later parts of his career, because he would back himself up against the cage and he would be defenseless, and he tried to counter strike, and just no volume. Tyron Woodley, no urgency at all. Tresean Gore could have been just nerves from his debut. I am going to favor him here at 8,300, but this is more of a gut play than it is anything from fight film. I don't like Cody Brundage from a UFC skill set standpoint. I think that he has solid wrestling, but I do think that he's got some levels of quit in him, especially if Tresean Gore is able to butcher him on some takedown attempts, and especially on the feet. So I'm picking Tresean Gore at 8,300. It's a lean, but it's a fight that I'm going to get to.
And when you talk about that last fight that he had, where he did take advantage of Dolce's poor fight IQ and slowing down there, he only threw 8 strikes in just under 4 minutes of fighting. So, I mean, that's something to kind of sit there. I mean, it wasn't a great night. I mean, like, you talk about weathering a storm, like he weathered a hurricane, bro.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I was just looking at the stats at Dolce landed 51% of his strikes, and it just seemed like everything Dolce was throwing was just landing. But I mean, I think that this is a fight that you maybe have to sit there and look a little bit at. Next up, we got a matchup that came together this week. David Onama initially on the card, his initial opponent pulls out of the card. Now Garrett Armfield steps up to take this matchup here. Garrett Armfield, 6,900, 9,300 for David Onama. Garrett Armfield had a tremendous tweet the other day. Basically, he had been back. He trains at what the gym formerly known as Stanford MMA, I guess, until we get really in our brain. I'm pulling up the tweet that he sent out here. And he goes, 12 hours ago. So this was on, this would have been on yesterday. 12 hours ago, I was feeding my parents goats in Missouri. Now I'm sitting in Las Vegas preparing for my UFC debut. Life is crazy.
Life is crazy, and life can change in a blink of an eye. So it can be negative, it can be positive, and you just got to make the best of it. I know that these guys are interested in getting back in the cage with one another, because they have fought each other on the amateur scene, where David Onama picked up a unanimous decision over Garrett Armfield. That was back in 2018. So now I'm interested to see what has changed in 4 years. I'm pretty high on David Onama, Jason. I really am pretty high on David Onama, and I think you are as well.
The first thing about this fight, it's at 45. Garrett Armfield is not a 45er.
Yep.
He is a 35er. Now, look, completely understand you're Garrett Armfield, why you take this matchup. No question about it. You have to take the matchup. I totally get it. It's getting into the UFC, all that. You know, my fear is that when these guys step into the cage on Saturday night, that it's going to look like two guys that are 2 weight classes apart.
Yeah. I mean, I really like David Onama, and from a skill set, right? Like, we talk about the eye test, and I do think that David Onama passes the eye test. I haven't really done a lot of research on Armfield yet. I will by the weekend have more. But anytime you're beating up Gabriel Benitez and finishing them with punches in round 1, that's extremely impressive, regardless of where Benitez is at in his career right now. Debuting against Mason Jones, who is one of the best prospects in the game right now, and having a super competitive fight on short notice was extremely impressive. So I really think that David Onama could break the slate, and priced at 9,300, I'm all about it, man. I'm all about it, but I think he's going to be carrying some heavy ownership. I don't care, though. I think he's going to be one of the best plays on the slate.
To give you a little inside MMA business here, they're both represented by the same manager, which I always find very interesting in these short notice fights, when the manager represents both sides of the equation here. And I was laughing as you were talking.
Why is that?
Did you happen to see what Tyler posted in the YouTube comments?
No.
Dude, if you are a goat farmer You deserve to be bet on at that number out of respect, because I had goats when I was little when I did 4-H, and we had a billy goat named Bob. I had to feed that animal with one of those mosquito tiki torches because it scared me so bad. I needed protection. Goats are terrifying, man.
So you're saying that Garrett Armfield's got some courage. So maybe
Yeah.
he does deserve some bets from us.
Listen, David Onama is no billy goat. I tell you that much. That's all I'll say.
I love it. I love the insight, and I'll let Tyler do his little Billy Goat betting on Garrett Armfield. But from everything I've seen, I think David Onama is a strong play this week.
No, I'm with you there. I think for me, it'll be more interesting to see what Garrett looks like when he's at 135. But I do think we'll see a sizable advantage here. But I mean, look, you want to throw some punts on Garrett Armfield, because you're going to be highly different than the field, as there's just not much ownership coming in there right now. Let's move over to Pete's favorite fight of the card, the 8,200, 8,000 fight. That'll be Carl Roberson taking on Kenny Nzechukwu 8,200, Roberson 8,000. I mean, look, when you initially think of Carl Roberson, you think about a guy who a kickboxing background, but this guy, he can utilize submissions, Pete.
Fraud. Him saying he's from a kickboxing background and looking to grapple every opportunity is a big red flag for me. And Roberson's burned me in the past, but I've also bet plenty of times against him. He doesn't look comfortable on the feet, and he's lost via submission numerous times, and most recently via TKO KO against Khalil Roundtree. My issue is that he's going up against a guy who I think is pretty underrated in Kenny Nzechukwu, and massive within the division as well. 6'5" versus 6'1", 83-inch reach for Nzechukwu and 74-inch reach for Roberson. So you're talking about a 9-inch reach advantage for Nzechukwu, in addition to having high volume. So 5 significant strikes landed per minute. I don't like how Nzechukwu has been finished in the past in pretty odd fashion against Jung, where it looked like an elbow split the guard and wobbled him on the feet. So that kind of looked oddly suspicious. And I was like, man, like maybe that elbow snuck in, or he was mentally checked out of that bout. But rebounding against Nikolai Negumereanu was impressive. And I thought that he did enough to win that fight. 95 significant strikes over the course of 3 rounds. Outvolume Nikolai and just looked to be battle tested. I don't think that Carl Roberson can deal with the length and the volume of Kennedy Nzechukwu. And despite this being the Achilles heel for me week after week, I do think that I'm going to be siding with Kennedy here at 8,200.
Yeah, I mean, this is another matchup. Low ownership on both sides of the equation, but I think it's got to be a fight that, as we're developing lines, you got to be looking at it. Then our opening matchup of the night, you got Ryan Lawrence taking on Kakhramonov. I've interviewed this guy countless times. He goes by Yokeep. 7,800, 8,400 for Ryan Lawrence. Look, Ryan Lawrence, takedown city.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for this fight. I can't wait to see them collide into the octagon because their styles are going to be extremely DFS friendly. Ronnie Lawrence possesses skills in all departments. He has good volume, relentless takedowns. I mean, if you look at his box score, he's averaging 9 takedowns per 15 minutes. That is absolutely insane, especially when he's landing 78% of his takedown attempts. So he has slate breaking ability, and he's broken every single slate that he's been a part of. He had 8 takedowns against Vince Cachero on Dana White's contender series, 12 takedowns, 6 takedowns against Mana Martinez, in addition to 3 knockdowns. But in the 3rd round, Mana Martinez knocked him down twice. So now you got Said Yokob Kakhramonov in here, debuted against Trevin Jones on 4 days' notice, and submitted him via guillotine choke in round 3. This is a guy who competed against Nurmagomedov and looked damn good. He has good wrestling, and he has good hips. So I think that he can stifle the offense of Ronnie Lawrence at times. And I feel like he might have some knockout power as well, and test Ronnie Lawrence's chin on the feet. I'm going to be getting to Said Yokob here And I actually think that he's going to pull off the upset against Ronnie Lawrence. Now, there's no way I'm going to avoid Ronnie Lawrence, given what he scored, 131 and 134 points. This is a fight I just circled. But at 7,800, I think Saeed Yokob is going to I think he's going to win here, Jason. I truthfully do, especially with a full camp.
Yeah, I remember one of the first times I interviewed Saeed Yokob. He's initially from the Chicago area, so he done a lot of work with Bilal Muhammad.
Okay.
And he's also been doing a lot of work out there at Team Oyama. And Team Oyama is one of these teams where, you know, they're very old school in terms of kind of their training mindset. But look, he is going to have to be able to stop the takedown. You know, Ronnie Lawrence wants to be able to take this one to the ground. And when you talk with people who are around Ronnie Lawrence, they talk about, like, you know, the sky's the limit for this kid. Because of when we're talking about mixed martial arts, when you have that ability to dictate where the fight goes. But Pete, you bring up the great point. In Ronnie's last fight against Mana Martinez, he looks absolutely tremendous for the first 2 rounds. That third round, I remember after the second round, James Krause tells Mana Martinez, bro, you're losing. You got to go out there and do some crazy stuff. And that's what he did. He went there and scored some knockdowns. And I want to say Ryan Lawrence had 3 knockdowns in that fight, as I recall.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
I want to say, yeah, had 3 knockdowns, had the takedowns. But, I mean, look, if you're Saeed Yokob, you have to keep this fight on the feet. This fight can't play on the ground. If it plays on the ground, to me, it's Ryan Lawrence. And look, you talk about a takedown group over in Fantasy Cruncher.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Lawrence is one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And his style is DraftKings suited. It really is. And back in 2016, he lost to Steve Garcia, who I think is solid, right? We've seen Steve look solid at times, a little underwhelming for large majority. So I do think that the skills of Ronnie Lawrence are incredible. I just question the durability to a point where Mana Martinez, in a fight that he was winning so handily, chin checked him twice in the 3rd round. So I like Saeed Yokob. I like his price point. I like both guys. And for 150 max, I don't think that I would be avoiding that fight.
Before we get into Sam's Super Chat, any questions that are in the chat, do want to talk about the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Of course, you get in that Stokastic Hall of Fame, just like one of our guys last week on the show, Richie, got in the Stokastic Hall of Fame last week. You got to be rocking that also Avatar. Of course, finished in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. Tweet your wins to @Stokastic HOF. You win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Of course, you're going to win that one time per calendar year. And kudos to our guy, Richie, taking down the big GPP over there on DraftKings on Saturday night, as he was sweating it out because he didn't have anybody in the main event. So he was sweating that thing out, taking down 37,000. So Richie, kudos to you, what you're doing. I know he is one of our premium members over at Stokastic.com. He's using those premium data and tools that we have over there. And of course, I always talk about that top fire tool. Also, give some kudos to some other people that have gone into Stokastic Hall of Fame over the past couple of days. Of course, my guy Eric Lindquist. If you're not checking out his PrizePicks videos, you need to check him out because he is absolutely killing it over there. Also, kudos to Ken taking down 2nd place in an F1 contest. Dan taking down 1st place in an MLB contest. Also, Wayne taking down 1st place in a MLB contest. So let's get right into Samuel's Super Chat. First off, we'll start with his over-under number. His over-under, we got 12 fights, is 5.5.
Ooh, he's close. He is close. I'm going to say under. My man has been accurate lately. So I'm going to say under.
I'll go over.
Okay.
I'll go over on that one. Top 2 cash plays.
David Onama and Saeed Nurmagomedov.
That's what I was going to say. GPPs.
There's plenty, right? Like Armfield Fiziev with 5 rounds, RDA with 5 rounds, given their salaries. You have to kind of put them as 1A, 1B. Outside of that, there are some awesome fights. GPP, I think I would go Ronnie Lawrence / Saeed Yokob, Kakhramonov.
Favorite also underdogs. In terms of underdogs for me, RDA's got to be at the top of the list at 7,200. I mean, we talk about this constantly about those fighters under 8,000, like who's the most talented fighter, no question. It's RDA. If I was going to look at a second underdog, God, man, I hate to say it, Pete. Chase Sherman.
Okay. I mean,
No, it's not my pick for the fight, but in terms of from a DFS perspective, as an underdog, if he wins, he's probably winning by knockout.
Yeah. So from my two will be Said Yokob, and Nina Ansaroff. And that's just, kind of not including Rafael dos Anjos.
Favorite inside the distance, I'll go with David Onama.
I really like David Onama. I really like Said Nurmagomedov. Truthfully, I think I mentioned it on our Odd Shopper video. His inside the distance is like plus 105 or something like that. I love it.
He might be my top optimal play, Nurmagomedov.
It's a little tough now that Onama got added. I love Onama, but I can't wait to start making some lineups.
In terms of leverage plays, I just think there's fights I'm looking at right now, Pete. Vanderaa, Sherman, Mullarkey, Johnson, Brundage, Gore.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
Dart plays, I'd throw Michael Johnson as a dart
I was just going to say Michael Johnson has to be a dart play just because of his hand speed and how hittable Mullarkey can be at times. And he's just coming off of a knockout defeat to Jalen Turner, which was like 4 months ago. So there was a long time, Jason, when I said, fighter was knocked out. If it's under 6 months, I'm just not picking him. And that rule kind of worked really well. And I got away from it a little bit. So Michael Johnson's worth a dart throw.
Thoughts? This comes over from Discord. Thoughts on value plays under 8,000 on a DraftKings single entry?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say Said Yokob just because I think that it's a competitive fight and it's going to bring the best out of both of these guys. I don't mind a fight stack either, Jason. Like I made some lineups ahead of time, and I ended up stacking the main event just because I do think that it goes long. Rafael Fiziev could finish it, but I think if it goes 5 rounds, just the $7,200 price tag for RDA, if no other underdogs come through or very few, and it's like low scoring, in a losing effort, he could do enough to end up paying off.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Nia Nunes under 8,000, I think, is an interesting play over there. Probably not gonna get a lot of ownership, so you can kind of put yourself over there. And Nick, I would agree. RDA is underpriced for what his abilities are. And I think the other thought that I have with that fight, Pete, is if you're RDA, you gotta do something spectacular to put yourself in that vacant title fight conversation.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got DeBronx, Islam, Michael Chandler, Rafael Fiziev's, RDA. I mean, there's kind of a cloud up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where if you're either one of these guys, where if you go out there and have a spectacular performance, you put yourself in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough. You're talking about like murderer's row right there. Everybody's a savage. And Michael Chandler having such a ridiculous knockout over Tony Ferguson probably gives him a lead over a lot of people, just because from a fan favorite, fan friendly type of style, people want to tune in to watch him because he brings the action. And, you have to do something, but it's very difficult to have these crazy performances when you're facing stiff competition. That's why, like, when you see crazy performances happen at the high level, it's like, wow, you have to appreciate it that much more.
Of course, myself and Peely back here on Saturday for Live Before a Lock. Appreciate everyone tuning in here for the Strategy Show. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That does help us a lot as well. Leave it, if you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment below in the comment section. We always love to see those comments. If you're not subscribed to Stokastic right here on YouTube, be sure to do that. Of course, coming up later on today, 3 hours from now, you got MLB Deeper Dive followed by MLB Live for Lock, as those guys will get you ready for tonight's main slate of MLB action. And we will talk to you on Saturday. Have a good afternoon, everybody.